Welcome on in, folks. Inside Black and Gold, Steve Geller, Jeff Nowak coming to you. Another edition, getting closer to the NFL draft and a little bit of NFL news still going on, especially in the wide receiver market. JSN resetting the things big time. We'll get into that a whole lot more here on this episode. Jeff, how you feeling after another wild weekend of parades going on in the city?
Oh, I got out of town. I didn't see any of those parades. I escaped. I spent yesterday out in Baton Rouge for the
Sometimes
for the
you
pro
need a
day,
little break from parades.
Yeah, and the pro days, the LSU's pro day is probably the most boring thing I do every year. But hey, it's there. I drive that 70-minute or so drive up I-10. It's a blast every year. I forget where to park, so that's always fun. Trying to figure out how to get around LSU's campus. But so we'll talk a little bit about that. But that'll be there's really not a ton of Saints news coming out of that, so we won't spend too much time on it. But there were a few interesting things that happened, and yeah, this is gonna be a kind of a shorter episode in the sense of we're gonna play you two interviews that we did previously. One is with Saints defensive end Chris Rumph, who re-signed. Another one is with Saints guard David Edwards. Obviously, the big free agent acquisition of the offseason. Looking forward to playing that interview for y'all because I think people will quickly become David Edwards fans if they are not already. But yeah, this is just kind of that period where we see, hey, so and so met with the Saints, so and so's at so and so's pro day, this, that, and the other thing, and that means, hey, we're getting there. We're less than a month away from the draft, and it's exciting because the Saints at this point haven't traded away any of their draft picks. So players, right?
And I feel like, what they've done in free agency, kind of gives you a little bit of a roadmap of what to expect for the draft. Now, I'm not saying that a running back is completely off the table, but obviously the addition of Achane is pretty significant.
Yeah, it changes a lot of what you're looking at, right? And that's why you looked at Jeremiah Love, and it was always tough because you couldn't just sit there and say, like, yeah, he's our plan. Jeremiah Love's our plan, right? I think the Saints had to do something prior. Whether that takes him off the table or not is a different question. But yeah, so this episode, again, we'll play those interviews. We're also going to have kind of a rundown segment at the top where we go through all the news. We'll talk about Cam Jordan. Again, we'll play the Chris Rumph interview. Back end, we will kind of do a quick mock draft 2.0. Just a 2-round setup, talk about some of the players, talk about anything that's changed in our mock drafts, and then we'll clear out of here and let you go about your day with some other stuff. But yeah, Steve, I mean, how you feeling? How's your bracket doing? You making it through?
Florida was one of my final four, so I took a bit of a hit there. Other than that, yeah, we'll see what happens. I have Michigan winning the whole thing, so they're still alive at least.
Yeah. I mean, UConn's going to win it all, so you're going to be wrong, but that's fine. and don't worry. We do talk to Chris Rumph about Duke, so you're not done with the college basketball
yes,
talk.
Indeed.
Yeah, but all right, let's hit a quick break and come back and go through the latest news, what happened at LSU's Pro Day, all that good stuff. This is Inside Black and Gold. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. We're getting to you this offseason, again, less than a month prior to the draft, so it's going to heat up quick. Who dat? Stick around. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating, leave a review. Tell us what you'd like to see more of. All that good stuff really does help us, especially in the offseason, coming up with topics, coming up with ideas, coming up with formats that people want to hear. So make sure to go and do that. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to leave a comment, do the same thing. But yeah, Steve, how you feeling about pro days?
I'm like you. There's not real excitement from them at all. You look forward to maybe some of the post-combine interviews where you get to talk to players. Maybe some of the staff from the Saints make themselves available. You did get to, chat a little with Doug Nussmeier.
Yep. But
overall, everyone's pretty much saying the same thing. Everyone's excited going to the draft. Everyone's talking to every freaking team right now. And, I don't know. It's a little bit interesting, but really not.
Yeah, and I mean, out at LSU, Nuss is back, baby. And I'm talking about little Nuss. Also,
yes,
big Nuss. There's a lot of Nusses. I'm never sure like which to call Nuss. Like who's Nuss Prime? I guess Doug would be Nuss Prime. But he says there's only 113 and it's him. So
I like Nuss Prime. He would probably like that too.
Nuss Prime, yeah. But that's kind of the big takeaway for me out of that day is like you watched Nuss in 2024 and you came away thinking this is a first round draft pick.
Right.
Like that was a pretty consensus idea. Whether he was a top 10 pick or whatever, he was going to be one of the top quarterbacks talked about in this class. Then you watch 2025 and he did not look like that. And that consensus started to be, he's a mid-round pick. He's a day 3 pick. But why is that? What happened? He got hurt on the second day camp. One thing that Nuss Prime said is, everyone wants to blame Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's not going to sit there and say, hey, Nuss, I know you want to sit and rest and get better, but I'm going to play you and we're going to pretend there's no injury. That is just as much on the player, especially in the NIL era, as it is on the coach. Like Nuss was going to play. Nuss Jr. He was going to play, and he was going to play as long as he could until that injury prevented it. And that's what happened. And he did that kind of in spite of ruining his draft stock. I think as a player, you're arrogant enough to think I could play through this. It won't be that damaging. But then you watch the result, and the result was, man, he's no longer a first round pick. But that player is still in there. That 2024 player is still in there. And what I saw at the Pro Day yesterday sure looked like a first round draft pick. He completed 69 to 72 passes. He was throwing dimes. He was rolling out left and right. Like that arm talent is still there. I think the mental ability, the processing ability is there. He's a coach's son. He understands what he's supposed to do. Maybe he doesn't have the measurables that you'd want perfectly for a starting NFL quarterback, but he's within the range of air. He's taller than Drew, right? Like he's over 6 feet tall. So no, I mean, I think whoever gets Nuss on probably day 2 is going to get a steal of a quarterback. They're going to get a first round value quarterback. It's not unlike Tyler Shuck in that way. In that, I think people are looking at the wrong things, and there's a much higher ceiling there than he's getting credit for. And I'm excited to see what he could do. And hopefully, if the result of this is that he lands in a much better quarterbacking situation than he would have otherwise if he landed on a team that just had no rudder, and now he can be kind of that depth option who backs up an entrenched starter and maybe takes over down the line. I think that's a perfect situation for him.
Like you mentioned, Nuss to me already, I think is going to be one of those ones everyone's talking about as that great value in this draft because, you're going to get a first-round quarterback likely to go in round 2 here, maybe 3.
I'd be surprised if he gets out of round 2. I think you're probably going to see Ty Simpson go higher.
Right.
Just because of the 2025 tape, right? But I think there's going to be a team, maybe the Rams, that's just the one that makes sense to me because he can sit behind Stafford for as long as Stafford plays for and then be that kind of, being that quarterback car wash that out there in LA. So we'll see. But and that's the big news. The other big news, Mansoore Delane, he's legit. I mean, you watch him play and you're like, okay, that guy's a talent. Then you go out to a pro day and there's always one or two players that is just like above everyone else, right? Just as an athlete is just above everyone else. Just the way he moves around, like you can just tell. And he ran a 4.35 40. I don't know, pro day 40s I always kind of get sketched out about, but he's legit sub 4.4 speed, whether it's 4.35 or 4.39. Like I think he's there. The Saints always roll deep. Grady Brown, who is the Saints cornerbacks coach, he led the DB drills. So, you're getting a good look at Mansoore. You're obviously going to have a chance to meet with him more. It's not their only exposure to him, but it doesn't hurt to be able to lead a guy through drills and see how he reacts to not coaching, but kind of being led in that way. Mickey Loomis was out there. Michael Parrington, Kai Harley were out there. Randy Mueller was out there, the front office assistant, former GM. So they got a good look at him. And number 8, I think he's a top 10. I think Mansoore is a top 10 talent. Whether he goes in the top 10 is a question, but he's going to be in play when the Saints get on the board at number 8.
Were there any reasonings that you guys know of, at least, of why he didn't take the podium and address the media?
It was strange. I don't know if maybe he tweaked something in the workout, or I don't know. It did feel like he should have addressed the media, and I don't know what happened, but we'll have to see on that. I don't have any answer, but it was strange that he didn't talk to the media as a top 10 pick. And AJ Halsey also didn't work out, which was strange to me. Like AJ Halsey, I think has a chance to be a mid-second round pick, but he's the exact player that coaches and GMs will want to get a good look at, as good of a look as they can, because he's on the fringe, right? Am I going to spend, if I'm the Saints at 42 and I'm like, I really want a safety here, I like AJ Halsey, but I was out at the Senior Bowl. He didn't work out there. I think he was dealing with an injury. He did work out at the Combine, but then you go to his pro day and he's nowhere to be found. And that's just like, teams want as many data points as possible. Jeff Ireland will say this all the time. Jeff Ireland wasn't there, or at least I didn't see him there. He could have been hiding. So I don't know. That's a negative to me in terms of, okay, if I'm sitting there at 42 or 45 or 47, and there's a lot of players I like, and I have one guy who I have all the data I want on and one I don't, I'm probably going to go with the guy that I know best, because 42 is not a pick that you want to mess up. You do not want to land an Isaiah Foskey because you didn't do your due diligence, and he didn't allow you to because you didn't do the work. And again, I don't know what his situation is. I'm not saying he's being lazy. I'm just saying you don't have that information, whether it's an injury, whether it's his agent saying, don't do this. I don't know. But I mean, AJ Halsey's a really intriguing player that I just do not know enough about. The other two guys that I'm interested in, Chris Hilton and Xavier Thomas. Chris Hilton, if just on like talent alone and like athleticism alone, he's probably at a UDFA. But like, what I appreciate about Chris Hilton is it's the exact inverse of AJ Halsey. You got the bare minimum in terms of what you'd hope for out of AJ Halsey, and that he worked out at the Combine. Chris Hilton, I mean, the dude's just doing everything, right? He was at all 4 kind of scouting bowl events, right? Including the Senior Bowl, the East West Shrine Bowl, et cetera, et cetera. He did pretty much every drill at the Combine and the field work. He did pretty much every drill at the pro day and took DB drills. Now, I think that's mostly because Halsey didn't work out. So if you didn't have a second person doing the DB drills, it would have just been like Mansoore Delane going back to back to back to back to back. And I don't think that's what you want if you're a player. You want something of a break in between reps so you can get a sip of water and rest and look your best on those reps. So I do think it was more like, guys, we need one person to just break up Mansoore's reps. And I think it's not a coincidence that it was Chris Hilton being like, I got you. And I don't know. That means something to me. Like, I want a player who likes the grind. And if I'm trying to figure out, okay, he's a UDFA, I'm going to bring him in. Is he going to do the work? Is he going to get better over time? Like, that's the type of player I like. Would I like to see a faster 40? He ran 4.41. Probably. He did increase his vertical by 4 inches from his Combine jump of 34.5, which that means something to me, because I was surprised when I saw that. Like, he's way too good of an athlete to be jumping to not have a better vert than that. But that's what it is. And then Xavier Thomas, who ran a 4.28 at the Combine, like that's a return ace if I've ever seen one. Harold Perkins also ran a 4.4, but he's 6'1", 220. He's just not an NFL inside linebacker unless he can drop into coverage, and I just don't see him being able to do that. So I don't know. Like,
he was another one I was surprised didn't take the podium at all.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I just don't know what an NFL team does with him. I kind of feel like he's just going to be there with no situation. So I don't know. I don't see him in play. The Saints do need linebacker depth. I could see them, maybe in the 5th, 6th round being like, yeah, why not? Maybe we can turn him into a more effective off-ball linebacker. But currently, he is an off-ball linebacker body with an on-ball linebacker skill set. You're not rushing the passer at 6'1", 220 in the NFL. Tight ends are gonna just put you on your ass constantly.
Right.
Like, you just can't. And he's not going to get any taller. You could put on a few pounds. I just don't see it. So we'll see. But he does need to be an elite athlete. So 4.40 will help him. But just where you're at.
Yeah, I feel like someone's going to, there's always a team that falls in love with them, a player. But yeah, I don't expect it to be in the early rounds at all.
It's just kind of crazy to think a couple of years ago, we were talking about this guy. It's like, oh yeah, he's a 1st round pick. And then reality happens. The knee injury didn't help.
Right.
But yeah, he just didn't develop into the player that you felt like he could. And again, if he could cover, great. He can't. He's just not good at it. Like, he can't go in reverse. So we'll see. But great athlete. We'll see if maybe he can develop at the NFL level. Couple other notable things happened. So Gail Benson met the Pope, which cool. You know, he does the Pope. The previous Pope used to accidentally tweet Saints or like the Saints hashtag. I guess it's not an accident, but the Saints own that hashtag, so it comes up with a fleur de lis when you post it. So,
but no, it doesn't happen anymore, right?
I think it does. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it does.
I feel like I tried it the other day and I didn't get any emblem, unfortunately. Yeah. I never know when things are working or not on Twitter, though. Me
neither, but it is what it is. I don't have much more to say from that other than probably not a bad guy to have in your corner. Beanie Bishop got suspended.
Who?
And that also means that everyone learns Beanie Bishop was on the Saints for the first time. He is a guy who got signed to the practice squad midway through last year. He wears 22. So that tells you about when he got to the Saints, because 22 was obviously accounted for until later in the year. So, I mean, the issue, I mean, it is what it is. Like, he's not a guy whose absence will be felt. But for a guy like Beanie Bishop, that could end his career, right?
That's what I thought. I was like, man, that's terrible for him.
Because here's the thing, like, the Saints don't have to keep him on the roster. So if the Saints cut him, then you're in a situation where any team that signs you, you have to be suspended 3 games if you don't serve those 3 games. Like, being off a roster, that does not clear your suspension. It's the same thing with Mike Thomas. If anyone were to go out and sign Mike Thomas, you would still be suspended 1 game for that brick throwing incident a few years back. Like, the suspension matters.
Beanie could work out with the team, though, and play in the preseason or not play in the preseason.
I don't think preseason counts. Like, I think it would have to be a regular season games. So, and I mean, there's no harm in keeping him on the practice squad. I also don't think being on the practice squad counts. So I don't know. Like, that's just it's not a good situation to get suspended when you are a fringe roster player. I don't know exactly why he got suspended, but like, again, that's something that could end your career. Like, he might end up going to the UFL. Like, he could do that, and it's not that he was going to have a lucrative career or season, but just not what you want to do when you're that close to being out of the NFL entirely.
It was kind of amusing just because in the studio, when the news came out, I'm there with Mike Detillier and Charlie Long in the studio. And I'm like, who? And everyone had the same exact reaction.
Yeah. Beanie Bishop. It's a cool name. He's got a cool name. It's catchy. A couple other things that happened. The Saints signed Ty Chandler. Another guy who most people probably don't know a ton about, but quality football player. I think he's more of a special teams play. I saw a lot of people reacting like, oh, what does this mean for Alvin Kamara? I don't think it means anything for Alvin Kamara. I think
we're still waiting to hear.
I think it means this team is kind of on the lookout for anyone who can step into that kind of return ace role.
Yeah. Because
for the first time in a long time, you don't have really anyone who you look at and say, yeah, obviously that's the punt returner. Obviously that's the kick returner. And you didn't have Rashid Shaheed returning kicks last year, but you really still always knew he was an option. So we'll see. He's a good player. I mean, he's a useful player. I think he would kind of fill that gap of, like, you want a return ace, but you also want someone who you would feel comfortable playing if you had to. He can catch the ball to the backfield. Interestingly, his dad was Deuce McAllister's teammate back at Ole Miss way back when. So there is a little bit of a Saints connection. He grew up in Mississippi. So it is not really a homecoming, but there's a Gulf South kind of interest level there.
No, obviously the Saints and the coaches saw something with that versatility and the speed factor. So anxious to see how Kellen Moore tries to implement that.
Yeah, and you don't see a lot of running backs in the 4.3 range, right? So, when you're looking at a 4.38 speed guy, like, that's valuable because he obviously knows how to run behind his pads in a way that, like, you'll see wide receivers running in the 4.3s, but they're not running through anybody. Unless you're DK Metcalf or, an AJ Brown, which those guys, they make a lot of money for a reason. One other big contract news, JSN.
Man.
You see that contract? I now understand
the wide receiver market yet again.
Yeah, I now understand why the Seahawks were like, Kenneth Walker, we can't afford to pay you $15 million because Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to make buku bucks. It was a 4-year, $168 million contract. 4 for 168. If you want to do the math there, $42.1 million per
annually
season. Now, that's average annual value. It's not what he's going to make in year one. Most of these contracts are backloaded, and then they're going to restructure the heck out of the back end of it. Now, a lot of that money's not going to hit for 4, 5, 6 years, but it's still there. And that resets the wide receiver market. That now means Jamar Chase is no longer the top paid wide receiver, and the wide receiver market has a new ceiling, right? So that affects a few things, right? It affects franchise tags. It affects, just kind of that value that, okay, you want to be a top 10 paid wide receiver. It just draws everything up. And I saw a lot of people when I tweeted that, okay, the wide receiver market has a new ceiling. A lot of people it doesn't matter for Olave's extension because it's not going to be anywhere near that. And yeah, I guess. But here's the thing. Every time that ceiling goes up, not anywhere near it goes up.
Right.
Everything, a rising tide raises all boats. So the higher that goes, just think about it. Okay, so what's a reasonable number when the ceiling is 40 million? Okay. What about 30 million? Well, what's a reasonable number when the ceiling is 42 million? Well, then suddenly a reasonable number jumps to 32 million, right? It all affects that ecosystem is impacted by whatever is at the top of it. And eventually someone's going to clear that. And suddenly a reasonable wide receiver contract is going to be 35, 36. That's just how it works. Look at quarterbacks. How does Derek Carr get a $150 million contract from the Saints? Well, because the ceiling of the market is $60 million a year. So his agent's we're only asking half of that. And suddenly that's a good deal. It's just what it is. So anytime you see a deal completely blow out the ceiling of any position, it affects an extension for a player that you're looking at who's going to be okay, what if I'm the 10th highest paid wide receiver? Can we get that done? Because I produce a top 10 wide receiver. I should get paid like a top 10 wide receiver.
They're not going to take me at least Garrett Wilson was the median line at 32.5 annually. And I don't know, with this new deal, does that push things up for Chris?
That becomes the floor.
Right.
That becomes okay, well, this is what I have to get. Anything below this is me taking a discount. And I don't want to take a discount at 25 years old, whatever he is. So that's just where you are. But
what do you think the holdup is? I mean, it feels like this thing should have been hammered out a while ago.
No, it was why?
Because I guess you're worried about how the market shapes out, but I guess the Saints have their number in mind to give Olave. I
mean, I guess you're looking at this from a team perspective, but why would Chris be in any rush? He knew this extension was coming. He knows JSN.
Right.
Waiting only benefits him. He's under contract. Now, if he was a free agent, that would be a different story because he would be kind of sitting out there talking to teams and there would be incentive and kind of time pressure. In this case, it's I have a contract. Worst case scenario, we don't work anything out. I make $15 million next year. Worst case scenario for the Saints, they don't work anything out. They have him under contract for $15 million next year. So, and here's the thing, we all knew that the contract value wasn't going to go down. So yeah, if I'm the Saints, I would have loved to get this done midway through last year, but why would Chris do that?
But for me, I was man, what's dragging on this? Because he's not going anywhere and it's going to get done. But I just feel the market can change against the Saints' favor in terms of value and only benefits Chris at this point.
The deal's not going to come off the table. He knows that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I said a few episodes back, I expected to be closer to the season than closer to the 2026 season than the 2025 season, right? It's going to be post-draft. It's going to be post-free agency. And there is benefit to the team because they can kind of figure out, okay, what is our money? How much do we have? How can we structure this so that, it's backloaded, but we can eat as much as we need this year, that sort of thing. But yeah, so we'll see. That's the big news that's going to come at some point or another. I'd be surprised if we get into next season without a new contract. But until then, that's it.
We've seen the quarterback market, the wide receiver market explode. I don't know what's going to be next. Is it going to be running backs?
No, it's never going to be running backs. It's going to be the same positions. It's not going to change. Running backs, they're going to climb in value, but they're not. Suddenly, people aren't going to start paying running backs $25 million a season. But all right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and I want to talk about Cam Jordan, what he had to say to Teron Armstead last week, where things are probably at with him. And then we'll talk about Chris Rumph and the defensive end position and how that's all working out. Stick around on Inside Black and Gold. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller. We're still kind of in a rundown segment here. The only other big piece of news is what hasn't happened yet, which is Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan still has not signed a contract. He hasn't really talked much, but he did go on Teron Armstead's podcast last week. He just kind of popped on there, talked about a handful of topics. Wouldn't say he said a ton. He did share that he has 3 options that he feels like could work out for him. He also mentioned that he was at the Saints facility recently to clear out his locker, just in case, is what he said.
Isn't everybody go to the facility to clean out their locker at the end of the year?
I think when you've been there for 15 years,
you leave some things.
There's a level of staying power. You don't need to worry about your locker getting stolen. So I'm sure there's stuff that he's had there for years. Like he has this weird anime cutout of himself.
Yeah.
That I've never seen leave that room. So I imagine there's stuff like that. But just in case is what he said. But I think this answer on is telling of why there hasn't been a contract yet and what he's actually looking for relative to what teams are probably offering him.
This is a foreign space for you, unfamiliar for sure. Like just having all these other conversations and just being in this spot without a clear path yet. How has that been?
Man, I'm sort of good with it. I mean, if anything, you'd always want to say, what is it that you want from any one situation? And I came in knowing, after 10.5 sack season, 15 TFLs, 40-something tackles, all right, we have another season like that. We crack deep in the top 10. And at the same time, I'm also accepting the fact that at 36, everybody wants to go younger. Younger doesn't mean more proven than what is presented, but potential gets the league a lot. So under that space, there's a set value that I have in my mind. That's value is to the eye of the beholder at this point. Value means position, rotation, monetary, sure, but more along the lines of if I want to get 10, 12, 13 sacks this next season, then I need to be in the best position to do so. And it could be at the Saints. It could be, it could be at Miami Dolphins. It could be, I won't go now. It can't be Cleveland or Buffalo or Green Bay, but.
He didn't say no Atlanta. Come on, Cam.
He did later in the show.
Okay.
There was more to it. And definitely go check out Teron. I hate taking clips from people's podcasts because, it's like I want people to go listen to those podcasts. But I did feel like we needed to play that because paraphrasing it wouldn't have done it necessarily justice. But yeah, Teron Armstead podcast called The Set. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it wherever you get your podcast. He does a really good job. And I do appreciate that, a lot of these former players, they get into the podcast space and they just start spouting just craziness to try to get attention. He's just kind of doing his thing and having realistic conversations with people. And I do appreciate that. So definitely go check it out. But what he said there, I think is the crux of the issue. And I don't think it's all about money. I think it's about role. And, you look at Tyrann Mathieu last year. Why did he retire? Right? Think about it. Why did he go to OTAs, find out what the picture was going to be, and then retire? It's because whatever conversations were being had, it was made clear to him that it was no longer going to be kind of, hey, this is your job, right? Now, whether he was asked to compete for the job, whether he was going to be asked to be in a supporting role, whatever, it did not work out relative to what Tyrann Mathieu was willing to accept. And so he retired. And he's talked about this. I'm not breaking news here. He was intending to play until he wasn't. Fast forward to now. What did Cam Jordan just say? He said it's about value, and that's not necessarily all monetary value. It's about role. What is his primary goal? Is to produce, is to get on the field, is to play.
Right. He's not trying to just be a cheerleader.
Exactly. And I think his hope is that he can land with a team that's going to guarantee him a role. Now, I think he'd be willing to compete for some level of snaps. He wasn't getting 80% of the snaps last year. Like, there's a rotational element that's going to exist with any team. But I think he wants to avoid a scenario where he shows up there and suddenly he's on the field for 20% of the snaps and he's not able to produce. And suddenly it looks like, well, I'm washed because I don't have 8 sacks, but I didn't get a chance for 8 sacks, right? I don't want to go somewhere and have my final season be a 2-sack season where I was on the field for 10%, 15%, 20% of the snaps, and I'm waiting for someone to get hurt.
And freezing my butt off in Buffalo.
Yeah, and he also doesn't want to play in the cold. He won't go play for Atlanta. And here's the thing, like, a team that's most likely going to offer you and say, hey, we have a serious role for you. You're going to be our starting edge, blah, blah, blah. It's probably not a team that has very high aspirations, or at least not reasonable aspirations, right? So, yeah, a team that's going to win 4 games may make that offer to you, but that's because they're desperate. So that's why I kind of see this working out to the point where the Saints just make the most sense.
Did you see recently on X, Cam posted a picture of himself all shaven in a suit, and he's like, what am I even doing right now? I was like, where is he?
And I don't think that's even... people just want to infer stuff. I think he just liked his look that day, so he tweeted a picture of it, right?
I just laughed. Someone said jury duty. Definitely jury duty.
He was all gussied up. He did cut his locks off.
Yeah.
Looks a lot younger with the new hairstyle. But that's what it is. And I think, like, it's at this stage for Cam, it's not about money, it's about situation. And I don't think it's dissimilar to the scenario that Alvin is in right now, to the scenario that Tyron was in last year. The difference is those guys were under contract and Cam is not. So,
and I guess there's no difference either what happened with DeMario, because he was basically said, go ahead, go for the money.
Well, there is a difference in that the Jets were willing to offer him $11 million a season to go play there and be their starting linebacker, and he goes to play with Aaron Glenn, who he knows, right? So that's if Cam was getting offered a legitimate starting edge contract, yeah, he's there on a team that, you know, whether you feel like the Jets have a future or not,
right?
They could sell that. It's a major market, you know. It's where DeMario got drafted. There's a homecoming element that only exists with the Saints for Cam.
Who says you can't go back to the Jets for a 3rd time?
Who says you can't go home again? Anyway, so that's where we are. Now, a player the Saints did sign, and a player that, I'm going to be honest, I've been talking about him as if he was already on the roster, because I actually assumed they had already re-signed him, because he just makes too much sense to not re-sign, is Chris Rumph. I don't think that he's a player that, you know, like, one of the reasons I'm still like, hey, Cam could come back to the Saints. There's a situation that could end with him staying in New Orleans. Saints haven't signed an edge rusher that you could say that's his replacement. Chris Rumph isn't that. I like Chris Rumph. I think he's a very good player for the Saints to have in this situation. He's not your starting edge. So, like, there's a roster spot kind of sitting there that feels like it'll be dedicated to a full-time rotational edge rusher, along with Carl Granderson and Chase Young, that does not exist right now.
I guess you're looking at it as your 2 edges, your starting edges are Chase Young and Carl Granderson.
Yeah, but you want a rotation. Like, Brandon Staley wants a rotation. So I think realistically you have 3 starting edge rushers, the way I look at it. So until you have a 3rd, I feel like that's where you're missing Cam Jordan. And if you go out and you sign Hassan Reddick, suddenly now you have that filled. Until they do that, I kind of feel like there's another shoe to drop. But again, Chris Rumph re-signed, 1-year deal, $2 million. It's a slight raise from last year. He signed a minimum contract, not guaranteed. He fought his way onto the roster. Paying someone above the minimum is an indicator that, you know, there's a belief that you will be on the roster, as opposed to last year where I think it was more of a, let's see what happens. He was coming back from injury. But we did get a chance to chat with Chris Rumph on WWL last week. So let's hear it.
Shotgun, Mac Jones takes the snap. Fakes the handoff, stands. Ball is hit, ball's in the air. Don't know if it's a fumble or not. The Saints are on it. Question is it a fumble or an incomplete? They're saying fumble.
It's a fumble recovered by the defense.
DeMario Davis with the recovery. Chris Rumph forced it.
Chris Rumph with that forced fumble against the San Francisco 49ers, and joining us now after re-upping with the black and gold. Year one here in New Orleans. Curious how that went for you. I know you were familiar, obviously, of Brandon Staley's scheme, but just overall, how do you feel things went with the locker room and just gelling, and things really seemed to come together at the end of the season for you guys?
Yeah, I think you can see the product that we put on the field towards the end of the season. That we definitely had the pieces in the locker room and the coaches, and just the connectivity between everybody, top to bottom, to have a successful team. And that was a big part of why I wanted to come back in the first place, is to continue to build on what we set last year. Like I said, I can't say enough about the coaches, but also the locker room and how close everybody was. And that's something that you can't, that's very rarely replicated around the NFL.
Yeah, and you bring that up, and that was something that I was talking about a lot toward the end of the year. And, the team was, I think, 1-8 at one point. And I remember we were talking to Cam Jordan, and he would say, hey, like last year we were in a similar situation, but the locker room was completely different in the sense that this year, the record looks what it looks like, but everyone's still doing the right things. Everyone's still, pulling the rope the same direction. What do you think it was about that locker room that allowed that team to continue to kind of, keep pulling and have the success at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think one thing you can attribute that to is just the guys that we have. Like you said, DeMario and Cam, obviously being the older guys in the locker room, led the charge, and there was no quitting them. The same way that they were practicing from day one in training camp was the same way they were practicing at the end of the year, and then also being able to see that, hey, like, we're close, guys. Like, yeah, the beginning of the year didn't go like how we expected it to go, but if you go back and watch how we played, we continue to get better. And honestly, we would have knocked down some of those games early in the year. We would probably made a pretty good playoff run for sure, because at the end of the day, it's all about getting hot at the right time, and I think we did that towards the end. And then obviously, Tyler Shark, man, you can't say enough about that guy. He's galvanized the locker room. Guys really wanted to play for him, and for him to come out his rookie year and do what he did, kind of gave us even more confidence that, hey, guys, let's just keep chopping wood and keep attacking each and every day with the same mindset that we came in with.
Chris, how would you describe your game? I feel like we see a really tough, hard-nosed guy on defense and also a big contributor on special teams.
I take pride in that, being able to play the run and being able to also rush the passer. But special teams is another thing that I'm not going to boost my head, but I'm pretty good at it. And then just being able to feel comfortable again. I just felt like this year for me was get my feet wet again after not playing for a couple of years. And this was probably the best. It was the best year I've ever had in the league, and I continue to just get better each and every day and kind of get back in the flow of things. And towards the end of the year, I definitely felt that, I could build off of this year. And obviously, I wanted to build with the Saints.
Chris, the highlight we played, I remember that play vividly. It was against the 49ers. And what stood out to me is, you went to the ground, you got back up, you got to Mac Jones, you stripped the ball. High motor is a word that gets thrown around a lot. How important is that to your game? Like, do you pride yourself on kind of that relentless energy?
Yeah, of course. I mean, guys, I'm in the NFL. Like, there's no other level past this. And so why I would be remiss not to give everything I have, especially on game day, but not only in game day, but in practice, because that's where it starts. And so I pride myself on that. And then also looking at the guys who are elite in the league, that's what they do. So at the end of the day, if you want to be like the best, you got to, replicate the habits of the best. And I think that's one of those things that I put into my game.
Chris, I know your dad, I believe he was a coach at Florida when you were getting recruited. How did you end up at Duke?
How did I end up at Duke, man? Yeah. That's a great question. No, at the time, yeah, he was at Florida, and then they obviously showed some interest. But for me, I wanted to make a name for myself and not live under being the coach's kid, you know what I mean? And so that definitely put into perspective of where I wanted to go. And then when I got to Duke, I visited, the campus is amazing. The education is unmatched. And I just felt like there was something there that I could build and build my name with. And then I feel like God just put me there for a reason. And I guess it turned out for the best.
Chris, were you worried at all when Sienna was kind of making a run, or did you have confidence in the Blue Devils all along, man?
No, you don't know how many, hey, guys, you don't know how many text messages I got.
I'm sure.
Looks like they're about to lose. But sure enough, they pulled through. So a lot of text messages got replied to. I'll say that.
Yeah, no one's gonna remember the almost got upset by the 16. It just as long as that number on one side is higher than the other. I do have a question. So you obviously went to high school in Gainesville. I think the Buchholz, is that how you say the high school name? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Buchholz.
Okay, I know you didn't want you to give me a hard time. I say Buchholz or something like that. So do you have like split allegiances coming up in Gainesville and like the Gators, or are you all Duke now?
Oh, no, man. I mean, shoot, you could say that for a lot of schools. My dad was at a handful of them. So I got to give my allegiance to Duke, man. Go Blue Devils. I was able to go recently, not too long ago, when I was on IR, and go back and see, what they've built since I left. And, I mean, they're doing a great job. And I want to give a shout-out to Nina King, because when I was there, I sensed that she came in there with the correct mindset. And a lot of where Duke is at is a credit to her. So she's done an amazing job, as well as the coaches that they have brought in.
Definitely looking forward to more of your journey, Chris. Like, so far, what you've done, what are you most proud of right now in your career?
Most proud of, man. I got a lot I still got to achieve, but I think, just being in the league in year 6 and signing another contract, I think that's what I'm more proud of than anything, especially coming off the injuries to go on that. I mean, it's easy for a lot of guys to just go in that hole and not come back out. But for me, I had to fight through back-to-back surgeries and missed seasons and games. And for me to come back and play 17 fully healthy and come out unscathed, man, that's I give God the glory for that. That's one thing I'm most proud of, because a lot of guys don't come back from that injury bug.
Yeah, I'm curious. Obviously, Chase Young had his own injury issues that he's fought back from as well. What is your relationship like with Chase, and what did you see from him last year? Because it really seemed like he really kind of locked in and took control of that defense late in the year.
Yeah, man, he saw me starting to get those sacks early in the year. He was like, "No, man, I can't let this guy come in and take my money." No, man, Chase is a great guy. He's a hard worker, and like with me, a lot of guys don't know, what you go through, especially with injuries. But to be a top guy, a number 1 draft pick, and to go through what he went through, and then to be able to come back and have the season that he had, is a testament to his character and his work ethic as well. But he's a great guy, man. He's a funny guy in the locker room, and he's just a good guy.
Yeah, I mean, just in general, like, what do you think the next step is for this defense? Like, what do you need to build on and improve on this upcoming year to get back to the playoffs, to meet all those expectations that I know everyone's setting in the offseason?
I think after our first season, I think everybody's they get the standard of the defense and the ins and outs. So for us, I think as a defense, being able to just command the plays even better than we did this past year, because as you know, only things get better with time. And so the more time you're in that defense, the more knowledge you get about being able to pick and choose when to take your shots. And to get all 11 guys to do that on defense at one given time and to communicate as one, I think that would definitely take our defense to the next step.
Chris, definitely appreciate the time, man. Congratulations on re-upping with the black and gold, and look forward to seeing you back on the field soon when we're out there seeing you guys with OTAs coming up eventually.
Oh, yeah. Hey, listen, I'm still on vacation now, okay? I still got about a couple rounds of golf left in me before I get back to that, but can't wait to see you guys either.
Nice. Enjoy it.
Chris, just know if UConn takes down Duke again, I'm going to give you a hard time about it.
Oh, okay. Look. Now, I almost got in trouble with the gambling thing, but no, we ain't going to put nothing on it. But listen, I can definitely make you do some push-ups if they lose now.
All right, good deal. Sounds good. All right, and good stuff from Chris. I do really like Chris. I think he's a good he's an energy guy. He's a juice guy in that locker room. And you need those. Like, you need guys who are committed to owning their role on special teams. You need guys who are committed to being ready. So, suddenly Chase Young is out for a game. It's like, we need a body in there. We need someone who knows the defense, who's going to, be that kind of high energy motor guy. And that's who he is. I'll look past him being a Duke guy. If UConn beats Duke, I will force him to do those push-ups, by the way. I'm not going to let him off the hook on that.
You look at with Rumph too, and obviously there's a connection with Brandon Staley. He's a Staley dude. Yeah. And that is the theme, right? Like Brandon Staley wants to remake this defense in his image. Exactly. Yeah.
And there's always a challenge there, because sometimes, you're going to alienate the veterans in that room to a degree. Now, you will say, hey, yeah, okay, Tyrann Mathieu retired, but Demario Davis and Cam Jordan, they had massive production seasons. So, he wasn't pushing them out the door per se, like they got on the field. But I do think that Brandon likes the idea of kind of resetting, and I'm sure Kellen more to a degree too, like, hey, we want to play young players, whatever that looks like. So what's the draft investment going to be? You can't stay dedicated to veterans just because they're synonymous with the team and the city. You'd like to, but it has to make sense. And that's probably where I think things are getting a little sticky right now.
I feel like the longer this goes on, though, the longer it feels to me that Cam's going to be elsewhere.
We'll see. Again, I think there becomes a point where the Saints just have to figure out that roster spot. So if you're not just going to sit around and wait, I think there is an offer on the table, and you'll go. But you're filling in the kind of gaps around that space. Well, that's what the Chris Rumph signing is. That's what the John Ridgway signing is. Like you've got these depth pieces along the defensive line, and you're kind of plugging guys in there. There's just that one kind of big hole, and we'll see. But yeah,
no. And the other questions I have, we still haven't heard any news on Alvin Kamara's plans or Taysom Hill's plans. I know Kamara was taking part in the flag football game, but nobody still interviewed him out there.
I mean, he probably didn't want to talk to anybody. It was funny because he was supposed to be on Teron Armstead's podcast as well, but fell through. I think the PR team was like, let's not do that, which to me is an indicator that like they're still trying to figure things out. They just don't want to. They don't want any headlines out there that are not conducive to progress. To
Alvin's credit on that too, he could have said, "I don't care what PR says, I'm still doing it," but he didn't go on the Teron Armstead podcast.
Right. So we'll see. I mean, it does. I think that's a good sign in terms of,
No, I feel you're right.
If he was angry that they signed a guy and he wanted to go vent, he could have done that. And they can't stop him. At the end of the day, they can't stop him. They can only ask. But all right, that's going to wrap up that segment. We're going to hit a break, come back, and we have an exclusive interview that we did with David Edwards, new Saints left guard. Really enjoyed the conversation, so looking forward to that. Again, Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller. We'll be coming back with that, and then we'll close out with a quick mock draft 2.0 to get a picture on what all has changed since free agency, how we're feeling about everything, all that good stuff. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller. And as promised, we have an exclusive interview that we were able to do with David Edwards. It was one of the interviews we got to do with all the Saints free agents. So we'll be parceling them out over the next few episodes. As promised, this is one that I felt like, gives you a picture of who David Edwards is. Like, I think it's very quickly apparent why the Saints were drawn to him in free agency, why it made a lot of sense to bring David Edwards in. Obviously, it was a position in need at left guard, but there's a lot of players that you could have landed with, and this was the one they did on a 4-year, $61 million contract. They paid for that privilege, and I think listening to this interview, you'll feel pretty good about why they paid that. Big contract, big free agent acquisition. Just tell me, what's been going through your mind the last couple of days? How has this experience gone for you?
It's been awesome. Yeah, it's been kind of a whirlwind, but really exciting because we're here finally and things are finalized, and I'm just really excited to be part of this organization, this city. It's going to be awesome.
I know you got to play with Will Clapp in Buffalo. How much of an influence was he in your recruitment here?
We didn't talk during the free agency period, just understanding the rules, but Will is a great friend of mine. And one thing that was cool was just, years ago, talking just different coaches that we've had, spoke so highly of Nuge and Kellen Moore that always kind of stuck with me. So, Will's a great friend and been around him for, a year or so, but, just hearing the words that he had spoken in years previous, always carried with me.
Certainly, offensive linemen, keep the penalties down. So for you, you've had roughly 5,661 snaps. and 19 penalties. 7 of them came your rookie year. So, but all told, that's about 1 penalty every 5 or 6 games. Like when I first saw that stat, it like kind of jarred me a little bit. But that's got to be something that you take enormous pride in.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think that the beauty, and a lot of credit's got to go to my former coach here, Aaron Cromer. The techniques and the fundamentals that he had kind of instilled in me and taught our unit were based upon using your hands, but also using power in your hips from the ground up. And so what does that mean? You're not using momentum to get people off the line of scrimmage where you're getting shed and you're holding and all this stuff. And so we took a lot of pride in staying off the ground and not having penalties and all the things that you talk about as linemen. But it was really important because those are killers. You know, you get a holding penalty, you get a false start, and you're behind the chains now. Like those are the messaging you hear, you know, week in and week out, is stay in the green, stay on schedule. And so, you know, that's super important.
I know you were teammates of Ryan Ramczyk back at Wisconsin. Did you guys have a connection there? I know it was your first 2 years, and then he went to the Saints, obviously, and you were a left tackle in college?
He was left, I was right.
Okay,
yeah.
So have you talked to him at all? Like, how was that relationship?
Yeah, you know, Ram was a great friend of mine and is a great friend of mine. And when we were together in college, you know, the worker, the style of play, the technique that he used is something I tried to emulate. And so, you know, he had a tremendous career here and in the NFL, and, you know, someone I really admired and looked up to, and he always spoke so highly of this place. And every person that I know that has been connected to this place has spoken so highly of New Orleans, this building, the organization. And so not only Ram, but all the coaches or players that have been in this building have spoken so highly of it and loved it, that always, again, stuck with me when this process was going.
Gotcha. And so, Mike, just to follow up on that, you know, switching from tackle to guard, when did that happen for you? Or when did that become a thing for you? Like, at what point in your NFL career? Because I believe you started at tackle with the Rams and then they transitioned you. So how did that process go?
Yeah, the process was kind of out of, you know, injury-based. And so when I was a rookie, played really exclusively tackle. And we had so many injuries on our line. I think we had kept at that point like 9 active guys. 3 of them were injured. And so Aaron Cromer came up to me on a Monday after a game and said, "Hey, you're starting at left guard this week." And I was like, you know, well, okay. But once I got to that position, I never left. I never took another snap at tackle. So that transition, that process was really cool because you're learning on the fly. You're gaining experience through the fire almost. And so I'm so glad that happened because I've really enjoyed playing guard, and it's been my home.
Yeah, and why do you think, you know, we've seen a lot of people try to make that transition. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Why do you think it worked for you?
That's a good question. I would just say that the reason I thought it worked for me was because, number one, I played around some really, really good players. Played next to Andrew Whitworth and Brian Allen and Austin Blythe, and guys that were really good players in this league that helped me a ton. And Andrew was a huge influence on me in my career and kind of showed me the ways on how to work together and get things done together. And I also had some great coaches, Aaron Cromer, Kevin Carberry, that allowed me to use techniques and fundamentals that were best for me and specific to me. Didn't try to fit me into, you know, hey, this guy does this. Well, that might not be the best thing for me. So just being able to be around great people and great coaches, you know, definitely elevated my game.
I have one more question, and it's the impact that it had on your life and your career. So in 2019, as you talked about, you're a 5th rounder, and nothing guaranteed for a 5th rounder. You go in there, you got to prove yourself. So that season, to go in there, you know, you played 16 games, started 10, had to be crucial for you.
Yeah, it was that 2019 season, because of the injuries, because of the adversity of like switching positions and like. I think I had so much growth that year on the field, in the meeting room. I was able to learn football not just from the tackle position leading into that, but now I'm a guard and I have to know what the center's thinking. Now I have to know what the tackle's doing. And there was so much stuff I felt like I learned and grew in that year that allowed me the foundation to be able to play, you know, good quality football as a guard.
So I'll skip
Section 2, which was 2021, you played 100% of the snaps for a team that won the Super Bowl in your own building. I can't even imagine what that was like. But so we'll skip that, because in 2022, you get concussions, right, at a position where every play is a car crash. So then you go to Buffalo in 2023, and it's like you have to kind of reprove yourself. You played on every game, but you didn't play a ton. So the impact of 2023 to prove to Buffalo that you could be that guy, because in 2024 you're back to 196% of the snaps. Right. How important was that?
That was probably the most impactful year of my life, not just even, my football career, because that really stripped me down to the studs on what I felt like was important in my life, my faith, my family, my kids. And I feel like I kind of lost that within 2021 and in the beginning of 2022. And so I really was able to, when I went to Buffalo, Buffalo is very different than LA, right? So I was really able to recenter myself, not just on the field, but off the field too. And so, and then I really appreciated playing. I think I took a lot of things for granted. When I was back in 23, I appreciated practicing and being around the guys and being healthy, having my family and my faith and my friends and all. I just appreciated life more. And so I feel like that was a big reason as to why I had success in 24 and 25. It's just a different mindset and mentality I had.
You've been around some pretty elite quarterbacks in your career. Now you come into a situation here with a second-year quarterback. How do you go into becoming his bodyguard and developing that communication and trust?
I think that's huge. And I've been really lucky and blessed to be around some great quarterbacks, like you said, and there's a common theme within that they're all great people. And just knowing what I know about Tyler, being able to talk with him a few times, he seems like a great guy, great leader, a great teammate. And so I'm excited to be part of his journey and help him in any way that I can. But the cool thing is that it's not just him. We're in this together. Right. It's all 11 of us on offense and defense and special teams. And so, we're going to do things on the offensive line and the run game and pass protection that help him. And then he does similar things, vice versa, for us. And so that's the beauty of football, is being on, a team with 11 guys. Everybody's counting on each other, and being able to be part of Tyler's journey and be here is going to be awesome.
Yeah, David, my last question. You're here with your new baby today. Congratulations. Is that number 4?
Number 4.
Okay, so my question is, were you able to avoid the snowbanks this time?
I was, yeah. Yep. So my third daughter, Margot, was born in a snowstorm, and Orchard Park is in like a snow belt, basically, and then the hospital is in Buffalo. The hospital's not in that little snow line, but long story short is my wife had gotten discharged, and she was like, we're just going to drive home. And I'm in the middle of that snowstorm. I'm like, let me come get you. So I'm driving to the hospital. I'm like 2 miles away. And I literally, if I rolled the window down and I put my hand on the windshield, I could not see my hand. That's how poor the visibility was. And so I had no idea where the road was, and I crashed into a snowbank, and they had to tow my car out and plow me to the hospital. It was a crazy experience.
Well, the good news is you're not going to have to worry about that down here.
I heard there was some snow this past. Yeah, I got you.
Once every 10 years.
Yeah.
All right, well, appreciate it, David. Congrats again on the deal.
Thank you.
All right, Steve, give me your impressions. What did you think of David? What do you think of David in the signing?
Seems like that, smart player that fills a role that was so desperately needed on the squad. We've talked about the guard position, knew that wasn't going to be addressed in that early first round in the draft. They were going to have to go in free agency and attack that. I was definitely surprised they were able to land one of the big fishes in the market. That's what happens, I guess, when you have a little bit of cap flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I knew they were going to go after top of the market guard. I just wasn't sure they were going to be able to get the top of the market guard. And I do think that he was the top player on the market. You could have a debate over whether that's true or not, but I was under the assumption it was going to cost more to get him. And that was kind of my question was the market going to get above, even for a team that's willing to spend?
Right.
There is a limit, right? They weren't just going to say, hey, name your
blank
price.
check, right.
But $15 million a year for a legit plug and play starting guard that you feel is going to seriously upgrade your group, you'll do that. And they did that. What I appreciate, and, if you go out and there's a lot of people talking about David Edwards, and what you learn pretty quickly in watching him play, and he'll tell you this too, is, he won't call himself a mauler. You won't have anybody saying like, oh, this guy's, he's just going to, leave you in tatters. He's a technician. Like he thinks through the game. He knows what he's doing. He understands fundamentals and technique, and he wins that way. And, like that was one of the things with Trevor. It was always like, okay, can he be that kind of mean mauler player and make it work for him despite kind of inefficient technique? And there were times it worked for him. There were times it didn't work for him. And that's what you get when you have kind of that low-end technician type player versus a high-end technician type player. You might not get the highlights. You might not get the pancake blocks, but you're going to win a lot of blocks, and you're not going to lose a lot of blocks. He understands how to use his hands. He doesn't play with a ton of momentum. He plays with, physicality, but smart physicality, right? Like he's setting up the rusher, and he's beating him how he wants to win. And that's going to benefit everybody. It's going to benefit Kelvin Banks. It's going to benefit Eric McCoy. You're going to be able to spend more time. If Cesar Ruiz is your concern, you can help Cesar more. Whereas last year it was like, man, we just have to survive on the left side. Now, if you feel like Kelvin Banks and David Edwards can hold up on their own, you can do a lot more on the right side. You can design a lot more to protect your right side of your offensive line. And I think that's going to benefit those guys. So all that is to say, like, I love this signing. I think it was exactly what they needed, and I think it's going to really upgrade that group. And the question is going to be, can you keep these 5 guys on the field? Because if you can, I think the Saints offensive line holds up with just about anybody in the NFL.
And we know Edwards been a pretty durable dude, had some concussion issues early on.
Yeah, he did. And that's obviously something that you don't like to see, but he's been really solid the last few years.
Right.
And this is a huge, like, you don't undersell, like, 2023, he signs a contract with the Bills for like 1 year, $1.7 million. Like, that's a prove it deal. He's coming off the concussions. He was drafted by the Rams, spent his first 4 seasons with the Rams. After that season, it's a 2-year, $6 million contract. So he did enough to be brought back and get a raise, but that contract is up, and you go from 2 years, $6 million to 4 years, $61 million. That is a life-changing contract. And it tells you just how much he was able to prove in those 3 years in Buffalo. That, and if he didn't get paid by the Saints, someone else was going to jump at that opportunity. The reason he's not back in Buffalo is because they couldn't afford to pay both him and Connor McGovern. They chose Connor McGovern, the center. And they've like, we can make it work at guard. But it's not because they didn't want him anymore. It's because they couldn't afford him. So yeah, that's the Saints benefit. I'm excited about it. They also benefited from, why do you value good relationships with players who aren't here anymore, right? Why do you not want to alienate someone out the door? It's because they become ambassadors for your franchise, especially when you're a small market. You can't, if you're the Jets, yeah, okay, you get New York, right? You get the biggest media market on the planet, even Dallas. Like, you get this massive media market. Like, that's at times going to outweigh, okay, that guy kind of gave me a bad review of what his time there, but I still, that there's an allure there. That doesn't really exist with New Orleans. You need to sell New Orleans from a market perspective. It's the smallest market in the NFL outside of Green Bay. So when Will Clapp is his teammate in Buffalo and he won't shut the heck up about how much he loved it in New Orleans, he's from Louisiana, like, that matters, right? Aaron Cromer, same thing. Kevin Carberry, same thing. Well, Ryan Ramczyk, who was his teammate at Wisconsin, same thing. And so this guy hits free agency and suddenly he's like, where do I want to bring my family? What organization do I want to be a part of? He says it's the Saints. So I think there's something to be said for that.
For sure. And like, we mentioned Will Clapp had a prior relationship with the guy that played with in Wisconsin, and Ryan Ramczyk. Overall, yeah, positive vibes from Saints players definitely helped land Edwards. I mean, I did not think, coming from a Rams, a Buffalo Bills, the Saints had a chance at this guy, and definitely think highly of this signing, and excited to see that left side now with Kelvin Banks Jr. and solidifying the left side for Tyler Shuck moving forward at QB and also opening up those running lanes.
Yeah, and I don't think he's just saying that. Like, I don't think he's just showing up and saying what people want to hear. I do believe that that's realistically a big part of why he had the Saints on his radar in free agency. He's not from here. He's not from the South. He's from Indiana, right? I make that up? I want to say he is from Indiana. He played in LA, played at Wisconsin, played in Buffalo, and now he's coming down here to the Heat. Like, it's about as far away from his like known climate as he's ever been. So either way,
you were close. Illinois.
That's right. Illinois. I'm sorry, Dave. My bad.
Illinois, Indiana began with an I. You were close.
He's not going to drive in any more snowbanks, that sort of thing. He's got 4 kids. They're all young. He showed up at the interview with a 3-week-old baby, fresh baby,
fresh
meat. Yeah. Number 4. So anyway, that's it. We're going to wrap up that segment. We're going to come back and we're going to close out with a quick mock draft, 2 rounds each. Nothing super exciting to talk about, but we got to get another one on the board. The draft's going to be here before we know it. So we got to get 2.0 out of the way so we can get to 3.0. And I don't know, maybe 4.0 will never happen. You're just going to have to wait and see. Either way, who dat? Go Saints. We'll be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller. And Steve,
yo,
how you feeling? How's the mock draft universe treating you lately?
It's something I still have fun doing. I don't know why. I could do probably 7, 8 in a day, and the simulators make it real easy for you too. So, we're not making the selections for every team in this. We're just making the Saints, so things can go zip real quick. I definitely have seen that in most of the mocks. I don't think Jeremiah Love is getting to me at all at number 8 anymore, where that was early on, seemed to be the guy that was falling in your lap and it was hard to pass up.
Well, all right, let's just get into it. Steve, let's hit your mock draft first. Again, we did 2-round mocks this week just to kind of go through it. And, I'm gonna spoil a little bit here, Steve, because you have the same pick here as you did in the first mock. So,
and I once again, I couldn't help it when the guy falls to me, and it's something that I don't expect to be a realistic situation.
Yeah, I blame PFF for this. I don't blame you, because the board itself kind of fell. Okay, Fernando Mendoza number 1, Jeremiah Love number 2. Don't see that coming. Whatever. Arvell Reese number 3 to the Cardinals. Number 4, linebacker Sonny Styles out of Ohio State. Number 5, the Giants, Francis Magoa, tackle out of Miami. Ruben Bain, edge rusher out of Miami, goes to the Browns at number 6. Caleb Downs at number 7. And as we talked about, David Bailey, again, your pick at number 8. And I agree with you. It's like, if he's on the board, how do you not?
I was tempted, though, because you were just out even the pro day yesterday. Everyone's talking about Mansoore. I was like, maybe I'll be different and take corner here. But I just feel edge is still way more important to me.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Saints address the position prior to the draft, because if they do, then that obviously changes things to some extent. But if they don't, they don't. And, drafting for need at that point probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But yeah, so, and as you mentioned, Mansoore Delane goes off at number 9 to the Chiefs. Carnell Tate, wide receiver, at number 10. Then Spencer Fano out of Utah goes at number 11. One of the interesting things about this draft, there's a lot of teams without a first-round pick, which that's not unusual to see, like a handful of teams without a first-round pick. But you got 5 teams this year that don't have a first-round pick, right? You have the Colts who don't draft until 47, the Falcons who don't draft until 48, the Packers who don't draft until 52, the Jags who don't draft until 56, and then the Broncos who traded for Jalen Waddle don't draft until 62. So I don't know. I'm fascinated to see if that impacts the first round at all, in that, okay, the Colts, do you move up? Do you move back? Right? Do you try to grab more picks because you don't have the first rounder? I don't know, but it's like there's a lot of teams with multiple first round picks this year. So
what's funny though is the Rams do have a first round pick, which they usually don't.
For the first time in forever.
Right.
They have 2 first round picks.
That's true.
So
no, that's not sticking. They're not going to keep 2.
Do those right. And so do those teams with 2 first-round picks flip one to a team that doesn't have a first-round pick? Or do the teams with 2 first-round picks consolidate and want to move up, right? So if I'm talking about, let's see, the Jets at number 16. In this mock, they take Mekhi Lemon. That's obviously something they could do. But what if there's a guy they really love at number 8? They got a ton of assets, man. And the Saints, I think they're never going to do it, but I think they should. Trade down to 16. Play your board. We'll see. Either way.
I know, maybe the difference of having Kellen in the building makes the front office have a different view of the draft with his influence. I know it's unlikely still.
Yeah, I think people oversell the influence Kellen has on the draft process. I think he has players he likes, and I think he gives input. But it's always funny to me hearing people dole out credit. And when it's someone you like and they make a good pick, that's who gets credit. When they make a bad pick and there's someone you don't like, they get the blame. For all the bad picks, we're going to say Mickey sucks. And for all the good picks, it's wow, Kellen's really nailing this. I don't know. I just find it funny. But all right. Jordan Tyson goes off at 17.
Way down there.
See, that's where I expect him to go. I don't think Mekhi's going to get to 16. But
yeah, I was surprised to see both those wide receivers that late.
The injury history with Tyson is just it's too much. It's too much. He could end up being a great NFL receiver, but there's a certain level of value that you have to guarantee when you're drafting in the top 15. Because most cases, you're there for a reason. And the first team that's willing to take the risk on him, they're going to get a great lottery ticket. They're going to get a lottery ticket with fantastic odds, but still lottery ticket. That might not be the best metaphor, but you understand what I'm saying. Amar Cooper Jr., he was your second round pick in the first mock. There are some differences here. PFF has updated some things in terms of value. Jerron McCoy goes off at number 23, cornerback out of Tennessee. TJ Parker, edge rusher out of Clemson. You've already addressed that. So it's not really a position that you're going to be watching. Denzel Boston, another wide receiver, goes off the board at 32.
Yep.
Peter Woods. So he's been kind of dropping down some boards.
For sure, man. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, wow, because he was definitely considered, I felt like at least top 20 to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, you saw people mocking him in the top 10 of the Saints previously, and now the people are talking second round pick. I think something in the middle there is more realistic. I think he's going to get into the building with teams and work out, and they're going to be like, okay, I get it. Caleb Banks dealing with that injury. You have 3 defensive tackles in a row coming off the board here. And I do think that's going to be a weird thing for the Saints because I do think they really need to add a young defensive tackle and a nose tackle kind of developmental player at that position. And all these guys seem to be coming off the board. Every time you look at a mock draft, it's okay, early second round. And the Saints are sitting there at number 42. So I think I've said this before, that trade up, that Kool-Aid McKinstry kind of level trade up that they made a few years ago, I could see it happening again if there's a player they are in love with and they just don't think he's going to get there at 42. All right, let's go down. D'Angelo Pon's off the board. Jacob Rodriguez off the board, I think that's too high for him personally. So who'd you pick at 42?
I'm going with a guy that Tyler Shuck knows very well, played with at Louisville. Give us another big body receiver and Chris Bell.
Yeah, and this is a pick that makes sense, right?
Right. It was too good to pass up.
Now, it's fascinating to see how the wide receiver board kind of stacks up because I think this is a very deep wide receiver class, but you kind of look down and you're already at Jeremy Bernard at number 45. You've already seen a majority of these wide receivers come off the board in this mock. So if you don't take Chris Bell here, who's to say there's a wide receiver you really like that gets to 70 or 40 or 72, 70? I think 70. You're at the bottom. You're already at the player who's coming off an ACL tear right here.
Yes.
So if you want to address the wide receiver position, you might have to do it here. And you could do it in the third round, but this one, it'd make Tyler Shuck happy. You kind of they have it really, I think a lot will depend on how doctors feel about that ACL and how it's coming along. And he's been really positive on it. He's talking about, hey, I think I'll be ready for training camp. Is that realistic? Tough to say.
Yeah, the injury is the only reason this guy's made it to the second round. But just dreams of, a Joe Burrow / Jamar Chase kind of relationship dances in my head, and hopefully we could see that happen in black and gold with Shuck and Bell.
No question. Another wide receiver comes off the board, and Chris Brazel. I never remember how to say that name. Eli Stowers off at 59. Brazel went to the Rams at 61. Jadarian Price, the second running back, off the board at 62. There really hasn't been a major shift in the running back rankings, although I have seen Mike Washington start to climb. I think he's going to end up being a third rounder somewhere. If he gets to the Saints, I would love it. But, you did address the running back position. You signed 2 players. You still have Alvin under contract. So it's not going to be, like when we did our first mock, it was like, okay, well, we don't know what the running back situation is going to be. If they don't land A-Chain, what do? They did. So,
and for Kendra Miller, do we just look at him now as like anything we do get from him as a bonus?
I think you're just saying, hey, we're going to go into camp. We're going to see what you look like. And if we feel like you're the best option, great. But I don't like last year, I would have been stunned to see him get cut without an injury just because wouldn't have made sense. This year, you're in the final year of that contract.
Right.
You feel like you have pretty good depth. Devin Neal is there, who I thought looked good. And so I think it's kind of an open competition to see who makes it. Like the draft, all that is to say, like the draft slot is no longer going to save him. It's going to be about what are you producing? And do we feel like you're the best option?
It's just funny to me, just anything I've seen where folks are talking about Saints, running back, Alvin Kamara, the signing of Achane, some of their depth pieces, nobody, though, brings up Kendra Miller. And I'm just like, he seems like an afterthought all the way around.
No, like I could see them keeping Audric Estime over him, right? Because it's going to be about who's producing. What is your role? And can we trust you? Like, can we actually trust you to produce when we put you out there? And so we'll see. I do think he did everything right last year. It wasn't his fault. Like, I do think it's unfair to say, he tore his ACL, get rid of him. But it's just this string of injury after injury after injury. And, how long do you kind of ride that out? Again, if he's in camp and he's producing and you go into the preseason and he's producing, great. I'd love to keep him around. But I'm not just keeping him to keep him.
I get it. It's one of those players we've seen plenty of flashes. He just can't stay on the damn field. Correct.
And here's Mike Washington at the end of the second round here. So like you said, he's climbing up boards. And you run a 4.3 40 and you're 6'2", 6'1", 233 at the running back position. Like, yeah. Okay. We'll find a way to make that work, even if there's some development that needs to happen. But all right. Let's close out of this mock, and we will shift right over to the other one.
Who were your first and second round picks last time around?
Last time was weird because remember my mock disappeared, so we did it live. My initial one was Arvell Reese and Chris Bell. The second time I did it, I got Arvell Reese, but Chris Bell wasn't on the board. So I ended up with, and I did a 3-round mock, so I ended up with D'Angelo Pons in the second round, assuming that Alontae Taylor was going to leave in free agency, and he did. And then I got Elijah Surratt in the third round. So I went edge, corner, or slot corner, wide receiver. And that does kind of tease, what's coming up here, because I think obviously slot corner, we knew it was a need then. It's still a need now. All right, so let's pop this sucker up there, and we'll start going through it. As always, Fernando Mendoza at number 1. And the way this sorts out, we talked about trading back. This is probably like worst case scenario for the Saints in terms of what you'd want them to do. And that's in the sense that I want them to find a player that fits all their needs, that is structurally sound, that has all that fits the prototype, that has all the measurables you want. I don't want to look for exceptions. I want to look for the goal, and we'll get into why that matters in a minute. So Fernando Mendoza, number 1 of the Raiders, Arvell Reese, number 2 to the Jets, Jeremiah Love, number 3 to the Cardinals, David Bailey, your guy, goes off at number 4 to the Titans, which sounds a lot more realistic. Caleb Downs at number 5 to the Giants, Carnell Tate at number 6 to the Browns. And here's the thing, like, Carnell Tate is my guy. And I think Carnell Tate is the guy who makes the most sense for the Saints. Like Mekhi Lemon, sure, you can slot him in there and he fits a lot of what you want him to do. But like, I look at Carnell Tate, I look at the size, I look at the route tree, I look at the experience and the production, and it just makes way more sense for me for what I want. And so him coming off the board here is frustrating because that's the guy I would probably, and if I'm going wide receiver at number 8, I want Carnell Tate. Personally.
My wish overall, if I get to pick here, I'm hoping Caleb Downs ends up going to 8 to the Saints.
Yeah, and that's a tough one too, right? And you're talking about a guy who has some injury questions of his own.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then Sonny Styles goes off at number 7 to Washington. He would have been a guy that I would have been in on. Obviously, you signed Caden Ellis in free agency, so that DeMario Davis departure isn't a glaring need, but I do think that there is a spot for an inside linebacker because I think Caden Ellis, his role is going to be a little bit more all over the place, right? They're going to be able to use him as a pass rusher, and that kind of creates opportunity inside. So I would still feel like Sonny Styles is an option for you, but he's off the board at number 7. So who do I go with? I go with the player you were talking about, and a lot of people are talking about today, and that's Mansoore Delane, cornerback at number 8. Ruben Bain is the other guy there, but again, like, the short arms bother me. Like, I get it. He's a great player. A lot of people are going to say it doesn't matter. He can make it work without the ideal arm length, whatever. Like, I'm drafting at number 8. I'm not looking for exceptions, right? And we're not talking about he's slightly below the benchmark. He's like got historically short arms. No edge rusher with his arm length of like sub 31-inch arms has ever gone in the top 100. And we're talking like Trey Hendrickson's a good example of like, oh, he's close, but you're talking about 3rd round pick. And I think he was like 32-inch arms. Like, they want 33. So it's whether it's an issue or not for teams, it's an issue for me.
Right. You don't want to deal with it
because it just doesn't there's a reason I have prototypes. Right. So it's just not where I'm going. Whereas Mansoore Delane fits everything I need. The question becomes, okay, what do you do in the slot? Which of Kool-Aid McKinstry or Quincy Riley are you going to convert to a slot corner? Because that's what would have to happen. Probably Kool-Aid. And it's only because I think he kind of fits that role a little better. I think Quincy is an outside corner. I think Kool-Aid is the better player, but I think he transitions to the slot better. So just something there. But like, Mansoore Delane is a legit top 10 outside corner. Like, think about what Marshawn Lattimore did for this defense when they brought him in. Like, think about where they were prior to him at the cornerback position. And you're talking about guys like Sterling Moore starting. And his impact changed that group basically overnight. And obviously the scheme changed and you added a lot of good players. It wasn't just Marshawn. Even in that draft, you added a lot of good players. But when you have a legitimate outside corner that's just locking people down and people won't even throw at him, it's a game changer for your defense. So that's where I am.
I'd be definitely down with Delane coming to the Saints, although I don't think we've ever seen this team draft an LSU player in the first round.
That's true. That's true. Not for a long time. Wasn't Devery Henderson a first rounder?
No, I don't think Devery was round 1.
I feel like he was. Second rounder. You're right. He was a second rounder. He was 50th overall.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you may be right. There's never been a first round. I lose track of the drafts like way back in like the 90s and the 80s. Like, who knows? I would be surprised if it's never happened. Let's see. I'm curious.
I'm trying to think of a player that would be the first pick from LSU to the Saints, and I can't. First round.
Dalton Hilliard? Devery was second rounder. Michael Mays was 4th rounder. Dalton Hilliard was a 2nd round. Okay, Dalton Hilliard was a 2nd rounder, but he was the number 31 overall pick. So he's a 2nd rounder, like Drew Brees is a 2nd rounder, in that there was only so many teams back then, but he was not a 1st rounder. So yeah, it would be the first time they've ever spent a 1st round pick on an LSU player. But again, a guy like Dalton Hilliard is kind of like on that list. But either way, like he is Mansoore Lane is a top 10 pick. The only question is whether the value of a cornerback is going to jump up over some of these other guys. And the way this fell, right? Like, because if Carnell Tate's there, I'm probably taking Carnell Tate. If Caleb Downs is there, I'm probably taking Caleb Downs. If Sonny Styles is there, I'm tempted. I might not take it because the linebacker is kind of in that same range.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm okay at cornerback, but I'm not turning down an elite, like field tilting corner just because I have starters at those positions, right? Like, because that's the only reason we're looking at it and saying, well, why would they take Mansoore Lane? Because they have 2 guys that you would say are your starting outside corners. That doesn't mean that that displacing one of those guys doesn't seriously improve your defense. So we'll see. But I do think that like people, it's not a very common thread, or at least hasn't been until the last few days when people saw clips of Mickey Loomis talking to Mansoore Lane. But like I'm talking myself into it. Let's put it that way.
No, and you mentioned too, obviously there's a need still in the secondary with the loss of a guy like, Alontae Taylor not there anymore.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not the ideal scenario, but it's definitely one that like, if board ends up like this and I've knocked Ruben Bain down, which I have for the arm length, I'm not just going to take him because he's the guy there. Now, in a perfect world, the Saints would just trade back. Like I was talking about, like this is the board that would really scream trade back to me to whatever team is in on Ruben Bain. Like if you're sitting there at 16 and you're like, oh, Ruben Bain's my guy, and you're the Jets, go for it. We'll take an extra 2nd rounder. Because I could really clean up if I can go 16, and who's on the board at 16? Let's just see. I'm trying to scroll down the wrong window. So Kenyon Sadiq comes off at number 13. The Penn State guard whose name I cannot even begin to pronounce is off the board at 14. Ioane. CJ Allen, linebacker at Georgia, goes. Jordan Tyson comes off at 16. So here's the thing. Even if I was like, cornerback is a position I could draft, I trade back to 16. I can get Jermod McCoy. I can replace my Tennessee cornerback with another Tennessee cornerback. And add what? Like what's the value of an 8 to a 16? Probably a 2nd round pick, maybe in a future 4th, something like that. So then I can go into the 2nd round and load up. I wish the Saints would. I don't think they will. And who's to say the offer's on the board? But like that's the range that I would love to see them trade back to, because you look at the players on the board, right? Kedrick Falk out of Auburn, Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver out of Indiana. Mekhi Lemon's still on the board. So if you wanted to go wide receiver and pick up Mekhi Lemon, you don't know who's going to be there. But if you're not taking Mekhi Lemon, he might fall. And then suddenly you get a great value on him. I know the Saints don't love that idea because they're not gambling with the players, but I really wish they would. Akeem Mesidor out of Miami, TJ Parker. So if you wanted, hey, here's the other thing. Defensive tackle, right? There has not been a single defensive tackle off the board, and you're sitting there at 16. In this mock, there's not a single defensive tackle in the entire freaking first round. Okay, Caden McDonald out of Ohio State at 26. So you could trade down and take the top defensive tackle on the board. Mickey, are you listening? Trade back, man. Just do it. Do it one time. Just once. Just one time. Try it on for size. But anyway, that's where I am.
It's hard to change that aggressive mentality, I guess, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason this is their strategy, and it works when it works. I don't want to see them getting aggressive and going the other direction. You know what I mean? Like, so I'll settle for at least sitting where you're picking and making those picks. And again, like we talked about, maybe a smallish trade up if you're in the 2nd round at 42 when you feel like you just need to get to 38 or 37. That's a different story. But okay, let's move on. We're getting into the 2nd round. A couple tackles go off. Ian Achor and Caden Proctor KC Concepcion is off the board. Denzel Boston goes off at 33. And then this is kind of where you're at. So Lee Hunter is off the board at 34. So that's the defensive tackle out of Texas Tech, who I really like. Peter Woods goes off at 37. There's Ty Simpson, who's the second quarterback. Caleb Banks goes off at 40. So these are the three defensive tackles that I really like. And they're all off the board in that range of like 33 to 40. Like I was hoping Caleb Banks would fall all the way to me because of that injury. Maybe he does in real life. Here he goes off at 40. If I feel like I need to trade up to 38 with the Texans, the Saints and Texans trade with each other all the time, so I could get a Caleb Banks, I'd sign on for that. But I'm not trading up. I'm sitting at 42.
Man, interesting here, though. PFF has Cleveland going quarterback once again this year.
I think they should. But, whatever you want to believe is your prerogative. And I'm doing the same thing you did. I'm going Chris Bell. I really like Jacob Rodriguez. He's sitting there staring me in the face. He's not a second-round pick. He had second-round production at Texas Tech, but he's a fourth-round athlete. So I'd be willing to split the difference if he's there in the third round. Yeah, I'd love that. I'm not spending a second round pick on a guy who's not the athlete that it takes to be a second round linebacker. But I do love Jacob Rodriguez. I think he's going to be a solid pro. He's not a second round pick. And so I'm investing in my wide receiver group. I'm investing in my quarterback. I'm investing in my offense, and I'm going Chris Bell. If Caleb Banks was on the board, I would have picked him. And I do think that
you're just making your quarterback happy here with Bell.
Yeah. And you're doing, you do need to invest in your wide receiver room.
Right.
Right. When Sean Payton was here, he did not believe that. For better or worse.
That's why he still got little Jordan Humphrey around.
Yeah. And hey, they're investing picks in players that are already there. I think Sean just doesn't like working with top end draft wide receivers. He wants professionals. He wants guys who have been there. Like, I think that's why you're seeing him. Oh yeah, I'll go get Jalen Waddle, but I'm not drafting a rookie and saying, here's my guy. And they spent to get Jalen Waddle.
Definitely.
The first rounder and a third rounder.
Dolphins made out well with that, I thought.
Oh yeah. Dolphins, they need picks. They need to rebuild because they have so much money tied up in Tua that, they're in the situation that everyone loves to say the Saints are in.
Yeah.
Which it's like, no. They have $100 million dead cap charge for a guy who's not there anymore. They need rookies. So we'll see how that goes. But no, I like this pick. It kind of just fell to me. I actually knew you had already taken Chris Bell, so I was trying to talk myself into taking literally anyone else.
Right. I get it.
But he just makes sense. And again, a lot's going to come down to the medicals, how the medical staff feels about the ACL, how it's recovering, what he's able to do in terms of workouts. Like, I don't know how that like how much you get to see. But if they can get their hands on Chris, I like it. This is the other guy that I was trying to talk myself into. If the Saints had not signed David Edwards, if they had gone a little lower end, then 42 would have been Pregnon, and I would have. But I love the idea of not putting a rookie left guard in front of my second-year quarterback. Like, I really do love the idea of having an established veteran offensive line.
I was surprised in this one, the mock draft in the first round, Mauga, the tackle falls, and I was wondering, do you take him at 8 and try to switch him to a guard?
I hate that. I hate that. I hate drafting a guy with the intention of switching his position, especially in the first round. If I'm talking about a second, third rounder, maybe. I also wouldn't mind a guard that has center flex, right?
Right.
Because that would kind of solve two problems I have, which I still think you need a backup. You do need a backup center. They don't have one. Caesar Reese isn't that, but I'm okay with it. Jennings Dunker, just a football player, just like if you had to draw a picture of an Iowa offensive lineman from memory, it would look a lot like Jennings Dunker. Gabe Akis, like here's AJ Halsey, and again, like if I'm the Saints at 42, it's like I think AJ Halsey is a really solid player. I'm just really like I haven't been able to get a ton from him in the scouting process. So, he falls here to 54, and I could see that. I could see that happening. I could see the Eagles being the team that, just because they seem to be on a heater from a draft pick perspective.
Wait, Jeff, we have some breaking news here on the Inside Black and Gold podcast from NFL Network's Mike Garafolo.
Oh no, what happened?
The Saints are re-signing safety and special teams contributor Terrell Burgess, who appeared in 16 games last season for New Orleans. Not major news, but significant.
You made me nervous there. That the entire podcast was going to be pointless because they had signed Cam Jordan.
No. It wasn't that yet.
All right. Eli Stowers goes off. And Terrell, it's very similar to the Chris Rumph one. It's like, yeah, he's coming back. He's a Brandon Staley guy. He played a lot for you. Solid player. So, all right. Eli Stowers, tight end, goes at 59. Jadarian Price, running back, at 60. And again, you had Mike Washington. Both of these mocks seem to think the Seahawks, that's where they're gonna find their Kenneth Walker replacement, is at the end of the second round, which is probably right. Like if you're the Seahawks and you're not franchise tagging Kenneth Walker, it's because you're like, we can just get the next Kenneth Walker.
Exactly.
Like we can do it. We've done it before. Like, why are we going to pay $15 million for a guy that we could easily replace in the draft? But all right, that's it. That's my mock. How you feeling about it?
Good. I like I said, I contemplated. I was like, do I do a little different here and go with the Mansoore Delane route? I like the pick. Love the fact you keep an LSU guy in the state, and I know fans would love that. And just seeing what he's been able to do, not just on the pro days and combine stuff, but all season long with the LSU Tigers was definitely a huge bright spot and a definitely welcome addition to this secondary that I know Brandon Staley would love.
Yeah, here's the thing. I couldn't care less about the LSU thing, personally. It really means nothing to me. But he is the player that makes a lot of sense in that spot, right? And it's not like he's like he didn't grow up here. He didn't, he's not like he grew up in Baton Rouge dreaming about going to LSU. He was a 1-year mercenary that happens to be an LSU player. So that is what it is. His brother's also going to be at LSU next year. Yeah, he's from Maryland, right?
Yeah.
He played at Virginia Tech for 3 years, went to LSU. So it's like, I don't think that being an LSU player is really a factor. It's the quality of the player.
Just from the fan perspective, obviously they'd love it.
Yeah, and we would hear a lot about it, right? It would end up being a talking point. Wow, the Saints finally drafted an LSU player. And then the conversation would come up, well, why haven't you? There's so many good LSU players that have come out of the draft, and you didn't end up with any of them. What the hell was going on? And they'll be like, oh, it's just how it worked out. And they're like, no, I do think there was a Sean Payton kind of negative philosophy around bringing in local players and having that be kind of a storyline. I don't think he liked that idea. Whether that was reasonable or not, I do think that was going on. So I think that has changed. We've seen so many of these homecoming narratives since he's left. That's not a coincidence. Like the second he leaves, Jarvis Landry shows up, Tyrann Mathieu shows up, like Foster Moreau's here now, Justin Reed, Devon Godshot. Like it was just, it's so many of them.
Yeah, because at first I was like, no, come on. Sean doesn't have really anything against LSU players, huh?
Well, and not even just LSU players, like a lot of Louisiana players. Like so many NFL players come out of Louisiana, but so few end up on the Saints. And that's not a coincidence. Like the only LSU player I think that was drafted during Sean Payton's tenure was Will Clapp in the 7th round.
Oh, Devry.
That wasn't Sean Payton.
Yeah, Sean was a Devry guy.
Was he?
Trying to think of any LSU
drafted?
Players.
I thought he was before Sean, but I guess I'm wrong. No, he was drafted in 2004.
Oh, wow. Okay. He was already here. I thought it was definitely
he was pre-Sean, right? If Sean had showed up 2 years earlier, would Devery Henderson have been a Saint? Probably not. So, yeah. Anyway.
That's funny. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap that up. Again, Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller, Inside Black and Gold. We're getting ready. We're getting down to it. Draft is coming up in a month. Just about exactly a month. Doesn't the draft start on April 24th or April 22nd? It's early this year. So we'll get right down into it. But thanks everyone for hanging out. Make sure to leave a comment, leave a rating, leave a review wherever you get your podcast. We'll keep on doing it. We're going to effort a way to get Steve's camera to stop freezing. Like we'll do it. We'll get it done. Not this week, but it's going to happen. In the year of our Lord 2026, we could find a way.
I'm trying to boost all my Wi-Fi signals.
It'll happen. But do know we're aware of it. We'll work. We'll get the we'll get all our tech support staff and all the guys working in the background, all the producers and stuff to get on that right away. And we'll find a solution. We'll find a solution. But all right, who dat? Go Saints. Be easy, y'all.
Take care.